Hey guys! So I'm doing a kind of half request, half something I've just been meaning to do anyway video that I have time to do right now. I don't know if you can hear these people outside, but they're being really loud. Good grief. Anyway, that's gonna distract me, I promise. I'm sorry already. I want to talk to you guys today about my Book of Shadows and about kind of how I feel about Book of Shadows in general and how I think maybe the way I go about this might differ from the way you're either going to read about it done in books or even what you've maybe seen people do like on YouTube or whatever, and why I think that's okay. But I'm going to kind of start by this is going to be a longer video too, I warn you right now. I apologize. There's no other way to do this. There's just too much stuff here. When I very first read this book several years ago, this is A Witch's Grimoire by Judy Ann Nock. It really kind of got me thinking about what a Book of Shadows really is, because she claims that there's a difference between a grimoire and a Book of Shadows, and kind of the condensed version of that is that the Book of Shadows is more of a diary, whereas a grimoire should be more of a this is how to do ritual sort of descriptive type of thing, practical use, pretty much like a recipe book. Versus when you have a dream and you write it down and what does it mean or whatever like that. I will just tell you right now, I find that distinction kind of pretentious, and it irritated me when I read it. Like, it annoyed me. Why would I need to call it something different? I'd never heard it called that before. It just kind of bugged me, and it really made me think about how I utilized a Book of Shadows, and it pretty much changed everything I did. Which was not her intention, I guarantee you. I pretty much went in the total opposite direction. So my very first Book of Shadows, when I was a kid, was a composition notebook, pretty much like one of these. This is not that one, but it's up there. And I wrote really silly stuff in it out of like Silver Ravenwolf books and things like that. I think, as a matter of fact, she told you to write things down in your Book of Shadows, like from her book. So of course, like, I was like 12 years old. I was like, of course I will do this. Like, you know way more than me. I will write down everything you say. So I did that. And then I didn't touch a Book of Shadows for several years. I just devoured books. I read and read and read like crazy. And so by the time I hit about late middle school, early high school, I really wanted to try and have a Book of Shadows again. And I had this big, thick, it's also up there, I showed you guys kind of in my last video, it's a big spiral notebook that I think has like 3 to 5 sections in it or something. And I was a terrible high school student where I would get my work done as fast as I could, do all my homework, like, and then still have probably a good 15 to 20 minutes sometimes before class was over. I did not care to go the extra mile in class, I guess, but I did want to learn, and so what I would do is I would bring pagan books to school, read them kind of surreptitiously where no one was paying much attention, and then write in a regular notebook, which was actually my Book of Shadows, but nobody had any idea of what I was doing. So that worked really well, and I wrote down all kinds of stuff that I still didn't need to write down, and I was doing it mostly because I felt like I need to write down everything, like everything I know must go in this book and it's important, and it really wasn't. So that one was kind of a failure, but I did fill up that entire book, and it's really fun to kind of go back now and sort of read through like things, and then I'll look at it and be like, why did I even write this down? Like, I never ever used this information. And I know all of you are guilty of that too. Like, we all go through a phase where we just like print off everything from the internet, write down everything our favorite author says, and then you look at it later and you're like, I don't actually utilize any of this. Why is it important to me? It's not. That's kind of where I'm going with this. So I started a nice one in 2010. I was like, I'm gonna really do this for real, because traditionally, supposedly, what you do is you write it all by hand. It goes in a nice leather, sort of awesome, this is a hardback one my mother bought for me. And I had had this for several years before I started using it. I was just too nervous to actually write anything down. I don't know if any of you are like that, where you buy journals and then you feel like you're not cool enough to actually write in them, so you don't put anything in them for a while. I do that a lot, so that's what happened with this book for quite some time. And then I decided to start in earnest. So I did a dedication page I put a little thing at the beginning explaining kind of how I got involved in paganism and all that. And the very next thing I put in this book was the runes and their meaning, and I did this. And you can see there's a lot of writing on a page. Took forever. And it took so long, in fact, that I pretty much hated writing in this. Like, I couldn't stand it. I had to force myself to write anything in here. And I only filled it up a teeny weeny bit as a result. And that really bothered me because everything I put in here is stuff that I actually use, but it would annoy me because I'd write something down and then like a few pages later or a couple months later when I put something else in, I was like, no, I want this over here when I use it so it's all right there and I can't move it. If I misspell something like real quick, I'm totally screwed. I wrote it in ink. Oh my god, I can't fix it now. Also drives me nuts because I'm kind of a grammar punctuation Nazi. So I did not enjoy using this. And I, again, stopped writing things down for a long time because it irritated me so much. But one thing I was doing was using this, which is another journal I had. And anytime I had a dream or sort of a, just like I needed to write down my thoughts about something involving a topic to do with spirituality or whatever, I would go to this and I would write it down. This is pretty much a diary specifically about my religion. Has nothing else from my life in it. But it's really important and I can find all of that stuff I want in this one spot. So I really liked that. I like writing diary stuff by hand. However, in general, I type really, really fast. And that's why this big book irritated me so much, is I would be like way ahead in my mind of what I wanted to say and I would still be slowly writing out sentences and still screwing it up because I'm thinking of things way ahead and then I'd start writing the wrong word. So I hated that. And I decided to really think about why we use a Book of Shadows and what it's supposed to be for. And for me, my grimoire style Book of Shadows, it's a reference book. I want that there when I need to look at something really quick. And in particular, the thing I seem to use it for the most is looking up the meaning of like the runes or tarot cards or like little things that I don't do every single day but that I need to look up for any reason. Certain herbs with various properties that I might want, or like an essential oil, that kind of stuff. And so I decided to make a 3-ring binder like this with printed out pages. As you can see, I decorated the front of it. I made this myself in like, I don't know, publisher, like Microsoft Publisher or something, and then I colored it. But all of this that I have in here, and there's a lot of stuff in here because I do use this, is all in these nice little like empty sheets, and I can put pages in this and move them around or take them out when I don't want them. You could handwrite these if you wanted, but I choose to do it on the computer because I type faster and I can fix typos and all that stuff that way. I can also save the documents on my computer in case anything should ever happen to this. I can reprint it, which is something that also bothers me, is like, what if one day I spilled like my chalice of holy water all over this and oh my god, maybe it's ruined. Not now, like I could just go and print all this off. So I have tons of stuff in here. The number one thing I do is look at my chart of the runes and their meaning. I use this a lot because I use the runes a lot. And I'm slowly memorizing them, yay! But I went through in pretty much any topic that I like I have the Charge of the Goddess in here, things that I use but don't memorize every time. I have pages, let's see, these are important. I have pages for all of the elements and the little symbol that goes with them and everything that's sort of associated with that element. Not necessarily everything that everyone else associates with it, but what I associate with it. And I know this will probably irk some of you, so if that is the case, I apologize. When you see these symbols, these two are gonna look correct to you. This is fire and water. I do these two the opposite of what they should actually be, and the reason I do that is I cannot visualize Earth as being anything other than this mountain shape, and air is anything but this sort of tornado shape. I just cannot get past that in my head. So I just decided, screw everyone else. Like, I'll do it the way I want to do it because that's what matters anyway, right? So if you're seeing things in these pages and you're like, what the, like, that's why I do it how I want to do it, not necessarily how everyone else says to do it. One of the other things that I kind of have in here, these are a compendium. I think I got a lot of this from Scott Cunningham books in particular, but I have herbs, and like these are all healing herbs, and then like a long list of everything that can be used as a healing herb, just as kind of a quick reference. Like I can look at this and then be like, okay, now I need to go look up whatever maybe in a book, or I'll just like remember, oh, that's the one I wanted or something. This is like my quick guide. Of course I also look at books occasionally, but not every time. My point being, with all of this, oh wait, one more. This is my journal for my runes and any kind of divination work that I do. And in particular, I started this as a way to get better at rune casting. And I'll show you an example one, because I do different ones. I would start doing like a daily rune, and so I would write down what I drew. Oh, over here. There we are. Write it down, the date and all of that, like what it was that I drew, the meanings for them, and then a lot of the time I would try and write down an outcome if I'd actually done, like, those were like daily ones just to keep things in my memory, but like if I actually did a divination, I would try and go back and say whether or not, you know, I found that to be true, or if it had any special meaning in my life or in my day. And that, all of that is just in this one notebook, just this. So I have, as I've shown you right now, at least 3 different books, which I all call Book of Shadows. They're just different ones. And I've seen other people on here, I'm trying to think of who. Can't think of who right now, but somebody had like a Book of Shadows type thing that was all herbs. Like the whole thing was herbs. That's... Squirrels! Get out! I don't know if you can see him or not, but he's taking things and running with them. Quit, you butt. No! Hold on, guys, I'm sorry. What do you even have? He has a remote control to something. I don't even know what this is. Anyway. Yeah, I've totally lost my train. Oh, herbs. So you can have like an entire book that's just herbs and their meaning. And I like this 3-ring binder style, and this is where I kind of got this idea. No. What are you chirping about? College. High school. To me, my religion is a learning experience. It's something I'm constantly trying to get better at and learn. Say hello, Squeedle, since you're being such a distraction. Oh, he's a pain in the butt. Go play in the other room. Anyway, I started thinking about the way I went about things in college. How did I like to organize things? And I am a big organizational weirdo. I like to organize in a very specific way. And so what I did in college is I would have specific notebooks like this for writing everything down, like lecture notes and stuff. And then I would have a 3-ring binder like these for all of the printouts and anything else that I felt needed to be included in their graphs and all kinds of stuff. And that's how I learn. And I feel like a lot of us use a Book of Shadows because we feel like we have to, not because we're trying to actually use it for a learning purpose, so much as maybe like a record. And I would say the record type stuff, this is great for that. Like your any kind of psychic experience, any sort of dreams you have and you want to write down because they felt relevant to you, divination stuff, all of that kind of meaningful things that just happen in life. Those go great in a journal or a notebook or something like that, where you can write and kind of think about it slowly. Not something you're trying to take information out of one book and put it into here because you want to reference it later or whatever. I feel like we really need to start looking at these things as a learning experience, as a tool, not some kind of thing to tote around and be like, oh, look at my Book of Shadows, it's pretty. And I wrote down how I do ritual, and I wrote down like exactly how I do all the Sabbats, and that can be great. Like if you're that person who needs that every Sabbat and it really helps you, perfect. Like that's fine. But most of us don't. And I feel like most of us write down things we don't even use in our practice because we feel like we have to. And I'm not sure why we feel like we have to. But I've been guilty of that a number of times. And I've seen other people do videos where they've said, yeah, I wrote this down in the past. Not sure why I did it because I don't even necessarily agree with it now. That's another reason the 3-ring notebook are good, because when you decide you don't need it anymore, you can get rid of it and not be destroying a whole book. Anyway, that's just kind of my thoughts on how a Book of Shadows can really help you advance your practice and not just be something that exists as part of your practice, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think a Book of Shadows should be a thing you have. I think it should be a tool that you utilize to grow spiritually. Just my 2 cents on that issue. And I'm not trying to offend anybody else who does not do things like that, because I said I do this maybe a little bit different than most people, and I look at it more like I looked at things when I went through college. So if that's not your thing, that's cool too. Kind of the main point here, though, is that it should actually be useful to you. However anything is useful to you, however you organize it, write it by hand, type it by computer, maybe your whole Book of Shadows is on a computer and it's not even a hard copy. That's cool. The only thing that matters is that you're using it and not just having it exist somewhere in a room like all of the other books on my shelf here. I hope I covered everything. I feel like I probably did not, and I'm going to watch this later and be like, no, why didn't I say this? But anyway, if you guys have further questions about it, or if you just want to tell me that I do things crazy and wrong, I suppose that's also acceptable. I'm always open to other ways of doing things. So that's all I got for now. Hope you enjoyed this. Bye.